Morning. Today your desk-bound aviator is up here in British Columbia. And the reason, you might ask, why we're in British Columbia with a TBM900 is because yesterday I saw this incredible video done by Kinevo. Most of you probably know of him. He flies this airplane, and recently he's been flying it on XPlane because he's kind of grounded with the COVID stuff, so he's having a lot of fun flying his desk just like I am. And yesterday he did a flight from a really terrific place here in British Columbia to another terrific place. And when I say they're terrific, they're two sceneries developed by a little company called Prop Strike Studio. Two guys that really do an incredible job with forest scenery. They've got some things that you might want to take a look at. So I'll leave the link to their website below in the description to this video. And maybe also Steve-O's link. I'm a subscriber to his channel, and it's always enjoyable to watch him do what he does. And one thing is definitely clear. When you get through watching this video, you'll know that he knows what he's doing and I don't. But anyway, it's all fun. So let's hop in board here, or on board. To do that, we'll scroll a little bit and come around here, and we'll go in the side door the way Steve-O always does. You can just press a button here and we'll be inside. And we'll press another button and close the beautiful TBM overhead door. It has lots of stairs come up, latches, and then we have to seal it with this big handle here. And in the back here, it's a beautiful cabin. We've got a nice table. We can put the table away just by tapping it. You can see it folds up by itself. We've got some compartments down here for things. All kinds of neat tricks in this aircraft. It's a beautifully appointed model. If it's too bright, you can lower the shades and so forth. Really nice. And then up forward in the cockpit, you'll see we have a new call sign for our aircraft today. November 17 Tango Bravo Mike. Kind of a nice sound to it. So we're going to do a little quickie startup today, not the usual long checklist drill. I'm thinking while I talk, which is always dangerous. So first things first, we'll just come up here and take a look at the upper panel and make sure all the switches are off, which they are. Come down below, and I think what I'll do is remove this yoke away so we can see the lower array of switches. Yep, those are all off. Come over here, everything's off. Okay, good. So let's see, the first thing I want to do is make sure the park brake is on, because when we take off, we're going to be using the brakes instead of chocks. I see it is not, so I'll go ahead and lock the park brake in the lock position. Next thing I'll do is come down below and turn our fuel selector switch over to the left tank. I've got the fuel all set up in the wings. We've got about 90 gallons in each wing for our flight today. And let's see, from there we can go up above and we can turn on the battery. Don't have the ground power out here in the woods. So we'll turn on the battery, and then we'll just come down here and wait until all of the Garmin G1000 systems come on board. Come online, I should say. It's always a crapshoot which one is going to come on first. I usually think it's the MFD, and it does, but then the PFD pops on and you're all set. You can go ahead and do what you need to do with that. So I'm just going to declutter that to declutter 3. I'm going to put it on black mode, which I find easier to see. And that's about all we need to do there. Come over here to the MFD, tap this little button right there, and that will activate the MFD. Now we have a route installed I'll go ahead and show you that. It starts off at Bella Coola, and we're really not coming from Bella Coola, but I had to install that in order to get the route into the G1000. But what I will do is just activate that first waypoint and then scroll down a couple of spots to this one, and then I'll hit this little activate leg button, and that activates our first leg of the flight today. We'll go ahead and change the appearance of this when we get up in the air, turn it on to non-color view so we can see the aircraft on the route line a little bit better. While I'm in this mode or in this view, I'll just scroll through our 3 selections here and make sure we're on, this is the terrain thing, and you see obviously we're in the red zone because we're on the ground. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit on that, maybe 10 miles, and then I'm going to inhibit that. You inhibit that by pressing that button. And what that does is it squelches all of the warnings you get that you're about to crash, that you've got your landing gear needs to come down and all of that stuff. So we'll just inhibit that, and then we can come back to this screen. Okay, so that's all set. Let's go up above again. And this time we can turn on the generator to the main switch, main position, and we can turn on the ignition up to on, turn on the auxiliary boost pump, is what this is, BP, onto the on position. And we can also turn on some lights, nav and strobe, and our cabin lights. And let's rotate this dial so we get some illumination behind the indications on the panels. We'll hold off on the taxi light for the moment. So that's all set. And all we need to do is just crank up the starter. And sometimes you don't get a good start. You have to clean out the system, but I'll give it a try and see if we can get off on the first try. 2 seconds, prop rotates. NG starts coming up a little bit. Get it up to about 17 or 18. Let's go ahead and move the throttle up to low idle. ITT starts ramping up. It looks like we're getting a good start. That's going to go up to about 700 or so and then fall back down to the mid-60s, mid-600s. There we go. I'll wait for the NG to get up to 50, and I'll advance the throttle again to high idle and then to flight idle. There we go. That looks pretty good. We didn't really check the clearance of the prop, but I can tell you there hasn't been anybody at this location in years, so why that didn't go away. I'm hitting my number. Oh, I know, I was hitting the wrong key. Okay. Let's just take a look down here. We've got cabin pressure is fine for being here on the ground. Fuel is equal. Electric looks good. Elevators we can there we go. All right, let's do it manually. There we go. Rudder trim looks okay. Flaps are up. All right, now we can come back up here, turn these switches back to the on position. I'm sorry, this one, the ignition and the boost pump. We can go ahead and turn on the AP, the autopilot trim on. This is set okay. Let's turn on the landing light now. We don't need to use the oxygen for our flight today. We're only going to go up to about 10,000, just under the requirement for oxygen. Now let's go down here and we'll go ahead and turn on the inertial separator, which is important down here in the dust on the ground. I won't bother with the prop de-ice or any of the de-icing material because we're not going to be in a situation where we're going to need that. And I'll turn on the air conditioning, bleed, and the pressure mode. Rotate the hot air flow just a little bit. And that looks pretty good. The last thing we need to do is come over here and turn on our, let's see, come back, PDFD, and turn on synthetic vision. And we'll tap that and then activate all 4 of these guys. That gives us our synthetic vision screen, which is a terrific addition to this aircraft. All right, now the last thing we'll do here is turn on the flight director. And what I'll do, instead of hitting the nav button, I'm going to go ahead and hit my T key, which activates TOGA, which will allow the aircraft to be in takeoff mode. So you see the flight director comes up to 10%, or 10 degrees of climb. And then we'll rotate the altitude selector up to 10. There we go. So we're good to go. Now, in order to go, I found that taxiing here in the dust is a little difficult using the taxi mode. So what I do is I use the flight idle mode and just nudge the throttle a little bit, and that's enough to give us a push through the stuff. You want to make sure the yoke is back so the prop doesn't hit any errant stones or twigs or logs or anything else in our way. There could be logs on the runway here. There definitely could be logs where we're going. So the name of this place, by the way, is Machmel Fisheries. It used to be a fishery. It's no longer in existence, actually, but it's in existence in so far as X-Plane is concerned. And the place we're going to is Quatum River. It's probably about 300 miles or so south of here, maybe more. And it is a logging camp. And when we get there, you will see that the runway that they've got makes this one look like Las Vegas. It's a challenge, to say the least. So let's be underway. Hit the park brake, and we start rolling. Kicking up a little dust behind us. We'll just come out here. There's a couple of different roads that lead off this path that we're on. We want to bear to the left here. You don't want to go too fast. There we go. This is now our main runway right here. Lovely, huh? Not sure this place gets to see many TBM900s. Okay, we're just gonna sneak through here. It's a little bit of a wide area there. We just want to squeeze in there and keep the wing from hitting those trees. Just about there would be fine. Whoops, a little close. And then we're going to crank it around hard left. And then come on up here. Come to a stop. Park brake on. And let's check the Check the lights, landing lights. Everything else is okay up there. Make sure we've got our inertial separators on. Air conditioning and all that's okay. We'll go ahead and put the flaps down 1 notch. There we go. Now our procedure here will be to increase the throttle about 50% and then let the park brake go. And then I'm going to advance the throttle as far as I can go, just shy of the 100% torque line, getting ourselves up to a rotation speed of about 90 knots. And the goal will be to clear these trees down here. It's interesting. So if you're all set, hang on to your hat. Make sure your seat belt's fastened tight. And here we go. $50. $50, $60, $70, $80. Rotate. That looked pretty good. Up and over the trees. I'm going to go ahead and hit AP and get that nav switch on there, get it on GPS, bring up the gear. That's taken care of. And now we're on GPS, so we'll be heading in the right direction. We can bring up the flaps. Let's see, where are the flaps? Thought I had a good view of where I could see the flaps, but I guess not. Let's see if we can bring those up. That doesn't really show much. There we go. All right, flaps are up. And we're climbing. So let's take a look at our climbing opportunity here. So we got 145 knots. We'll do it on flight change. That'll keep us at 145. It says right now that we can do 2,500 feet per minute, which is probably way too fast. So we'll go ahead and use this dial here and just dial that up to say 160. And you can see that climb rate come down to about 1,700, 1,800. That's plenty sufficient. And it gives us a pretty good speed for climbing. So you can see where we're going here down the river valley, or not, that's not a river, that's a lake or an inlet from the ocean. But we're coming down here, we're going to make a sharp left turn, well, a shallow left turn actually, into a beautiful river valley. And we will continue our climb up that river valley. Here we go. beautiful country. Just like that. I'll show you here where we're headed on our route. First thing I'm going to do is turn the map over into non-topo mode, and I'll turn on the terrain. Now we'll come back and I'll zoom out a little bit. We're going to fly a long leg in a southwesterly direction here, southeasterly I should say, down to our next waypoint, which is quite a bit south of here. Always takes a long time to load when you reach a certain zoom factor. There we go. So we can look on the flight route and flight plan, and if I scroll down that, there's our aircraft right now, and we can scroll on down to the next corner, which is 502-711. These are geographic coordinate locations. They're not actual waypoints. I plugged them into my route in Sky Vector using geographic coordinates, and then was able to save that, bring it into the Garmin. From there, we're going to follow the waterways, because those black areas you see there are mountains, and they're pretty steep. So we just kind of thread the needle in between those mountains and follow the waterways down here to a sharp left turn, come up into a bay, past an island, which is really a mountain, and then we're going to hug this this area here real close. We're going to come in as far over as we can, and then make a 90-degree turn. Scroll down just one more. Make a 90-degree turn, and then we're going to land right here in the woods. And if you think I'm kidding, you'll think again when you see it. It's pretty darn tight. So that's our route today. Let's see. Come back out to our normal view. Take a look around. Fortunately, there's no fuel spewing out of the fuel tanks. I've had that happen. If you leave those caps off as you're refueling, if you inadvertently forget to put those caps back on, it's a very discomforting feeling to be flying along and seeing fuel spewing out of the fuel tank, because it's tricky wicket trying to get out there with a 5-gallon tank of airplane fuel to fill that thing back up. It's not easy to do. All right. So we're going to cruise on down here, and while we're doing that, now that we're at 10,000 feet, first thing I'll do, I'll come up here and we'll just turn off the landing lights for the time being, turn them back on as we make our approach, and then we can turn off the inertial separator at this altitude. We want to make sure that that's going to be on when we land. That's very important, because it's really dusty down there, and that stuff will get into the engine intakes very easily and foul things up. So while we're just kind of cruising along here, if you like, you can have a cup of coffee. You'll find a cup holder down here. Here you go. And there might even be hot coffee in it. Give it a try. I'll have some too. And if you feel like it, you can go jumping back and use the table. That's the signal that the inertial separator is off. Oops, fuel imbalance. I've been getting that light lately, and I'm not sure why that is. I'll take a look up here and make sure. Oh, well, there's probably a good reason why that happened. We'll flip that on, and then we'll shift it. Take another look. Yeah, okay, it's switched over now. And we'll deactivate that light. Get my key to turn that off. I've been getting that even though that switch was on, so I naturally suspected that was the case. But it is nice that it warns you that there is a fuel imbalance. And you can see it here on the MFD a little bit. We always want to keep those nicely balanced. Otherwise the airplane will fly in a lopsided way. Okay, we're going to start our descent here. And what we'll do is kind of a manual descent. First thing we'll do is turn on the lights. And then we'll, so that it's done and out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the inertial separator, which I had off. So we make sure that that's on when we're down there in the dust. Then I'm going to dial down our altitude. We'll go ahead and hit a VS and dial that down to maybe 1,000 feet per minute. That might be a little too fast, but we'll see. And we can pull back on the throttle to cut the torque back to maybe 20%, 15 or 20% for the time being. Get it down to around 140, 150. We're headed down here in this somewhat lower mountain section. There are still mountains, but they're not as pronounced as some of these guys over here. And as you saw earlier, we're going to make our way around a little path in between some of these higher islands and peaks, using the waterways as the channel to get through there. Close, but no cigar. All right, there's our 1,000 feet. And I think what we'll do is take it off autopilot. We're out here in the open with plenty of room. We'll make a slow descent down to around 500 or 600 feet. Bring the gear down. Green, 600, down to 3 or so and make our big turn here. Full flaps. And somehow we made it. All right, let's taxi around a little bit and I'll show you the lay of the land. Let's see, we've got to use our flight range to taxi. We'll go ahead and bring the flaps up. Let's use this wide spot here. Fortunately, there weren't any logs in the middle of the runway. All right, let's crank it around there. Try not to run over anything. And bring it back up to the end of the runway. See what we can see. Well, maybe we should park over by that building. Yeah, it looks like that's going to be a parking area over there. Trying to keep from getting stuck in the mud puddle. Yeah, right in there is probably okay. Here's an airplane. Let's go in here. Tricky wicket getting into this place, let me tell you. Whoops. Got away from me, boy. All right. We better park it there while we can before anything else goes haywire. I won't tell you how many times it took me to do that. More than once. Thanks for joining me for this crazy flight. It took me a while, but I finally made it. And thank you, Steve-O Kinevo, for giving me the inspiration to do this flight. And I'll see you soon if I can get out of here, okay? Take care.